for joining me again for 5 for 5, 5 minutes of a positive, inspirational message 5 days a week. And today I want to talk to you about fax machines. No, this is not another infomercial. But this fax machine is an upgrade because the last fax machine I had drove me crazy. It was very frustrating because you would get ready and you would have all your 20 pages lined up and inserted and ready to go, and you would dial the number and push send, and then you would have to wait for quite a bit of time because it takes it a while to drag it through, and it was a slow machine, so it would drag all 20 pages through one at a time, and so you would wait 15-20 minutes, and the last page would be pulled through and you would think you were finished, and then all of a sudden it would spit out a sheet that says communication error. And you would look at that and say, communication error, what does that mean? And I never had any idea what it meant, except that I had to start all over and do it again and hope that the second time there was not a communication error. That was so frustrating. But as simple as a fax machine is, we deal with communication errors all the time, and especially in the most important means of communication, when we talk to one another, when we text one another, when we email one another. Our communication with one another is so very powerful and so very valuable that we do not want a communication error to pop up in our communication with one another. But there are tons of communication errors that happen between us all the time. The first one I want to talk about is called the tuning out communication error. The tuning out communication error. Maybe you've had this happen to you. You walk into the living room, and the other 3 people that are living with you are all sitting in the living room doing their thing. And you announce to those 3 people, the trash needs to be taken out, toys need to be picked up, and the cat litter needs to be changed. And you walk out. And 2 days later you realize the trash still needs to be taken out. The toys still need to be picked up, and the cat litter still needs to be changed. Why? Because there was a tuning out communication error. They were all present when you said what you said, but because they were busy playing video games or playing on their phone, they tuned you out. We don't want to go into the living room and speak to the other family members and get a communication error. The second communication error, I think, that happens a lot is that we hear, but we don't listen. We hear, but we don't listen. So, for instance, you might be scrolling through Facebook, and your child or your spouse or your best friend is trying to tell you that they have had a horrible, no good, very bad day. And because you're scrolling through Facebook and they're telling you, and you're hearing them but you're not listening, you're saying, oh, that's great, that's cool. No, it's not great, it's not cool that the person talking to you had a very terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. But because you were hearing and not listening, there was a, guess what? Communication error. All because we didn't really listen when someone was talking. Other communication errors happen in text messaging. In text messaging, no one can see your facial expression, no one can hear your tone of voice, and so many things are misinterpreted in text messaging. I have just a simple one. Once we were having the ductwork in our house replaced underneath the house, so we were without air conditioning for several days, and it was hot. And so finally, after a long day of them working, they had half the house finished. And in that half of the house, air was coming through the ductwork, and air was coming into the house, and it was cooling off, and I was so excited. And I text messaged my spouse and said, we have air in half the house, exclamation point. The text message I got back was, what? Why? Why is there only air in half the house? What's going on? So the same sentence where I was so excited, we have air in half the house, yay, was read to say we only have air in half the house. So text messaging can often cause communication errors. There are so many communication errors in life. And communication is so powerful and so valuable that it can literally bring us together or tear us apart. So let us be more responsible with our communication with one another. Let us be more responsible in just listening when someone is speaking and not just hearing. And let's be more responsible in actually engaging with that person, setting down our phone or our video game and looking at that person, looking in their eyes and acknowledging their talking, asking questions, giving feedback, being engaged in that conversation. And let's please not use text messaging for those big major events in life because they can so easily be misinterpreted. Communication is so valuable and so important. Let's do all we can to stop all of these communication errors in our lives. Go home tonight and practice your great communication with your kids, your spouse. Call your best friend. And let us make sure that we eliminate every communication error we possibly can. Have a great evening, and I'll see you tomorrow on 5 for 5.